Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Powers. I'm a seniors living expert, and today I'm here with Jennifer Hoadley, who's a regional manager for the Alzheimer's Association. Today, we're going to do things a little bit differently, and we're going to jump right into it because we know you're all busy for the holidays. But Jen has some great tips for us how to enjoy the holidays with our loved ones that may be dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. This is such an important topic, and I know that it's really hard for people to carve out even the time to listen to something like this. So I'll try to be quick. There are a lot of great tips out there for simplifying, setting realistic expectations, and just kind of figuring out what does this holiday look like now? Because things do have to change as the disease progresses. Maybe you used to have a huge celebration at your house, and that might not be the best for everybody involved. So it's looking at what have we always done, and does that still make sense? Because I think a lot of people, we do set traditions and we like to stick with our traditions, but sometimes creating new traditions is also a great way to celebrate the holiday season. So figuring out what makes sense now, and then also figuring out who to include and who to delegate to, because you don't have to do it all by yourself. I think especially as caregivers, we feel like we do have to do it all ourselves. And there's a lot of emotions that come along with that, especially around the holidays. Holidays can be wonderful and enjoyable for everybody, but not all the time. There's a lot of pressure and stress that comes with the holidays, and especially when we're trying to meet others' expectations or even just trying to rise to the occasion to keep these traditions going. Sometimes there's even resentment at other family members or people that you expect should be part of the caregiving, and they just don't rise to the occasion for whatever reason. Sometimes it's legitimate. Sometimes they just can't do it for whatever reason. There's anxiety about how they're going to manage the different changes that this person is going through that's living with dementia. And then just the stress over all those additional tasks that come with the holidays. I mean, even if you're not a caregiver to somebody with dementia, gift bags, don't spend all the time wrapping and, they just get torn open. So gift bags are a great thing. That's a one step or a start to it. But it's important to just set those realistic expectations to try to figure out what matters mostly. Is it about getting together with people and having a nice meal? Is it about, seeing decorations together? What are those traditions? And then figuring out, does that still make sense? So throughout the course of the disease, we know that the person with dementia will go through some changes, much of which is related to communicating. So we might have to adjust how we communicate with that person. Some of this is based on how big of a holiday celebration do you have? We also may want to look at planning this holiday celebration at a time of day that is best for that person. Not everybody, but a lot of people with dementia do experience something called sundowning, where the later part of the day is just more confusing, more exhausting. So you may see some behaviors come about because they're feeling more stressed out about it. So think about what time of day makes the most sense. Typically, earlier on in the day, like maybe a brunch would be better than a big dinner. So figuring that out. Also, having a discussion with the people that would be invited to this holiday, close family, friends, about what are the realistic expectations to this. Let's say that you do plan a brunch and saying, okay, the reason we're doing this brunch is because later in the day, so-and-so just struggles more. So I'm going to need you out of the house by blank o'clock. And just sticking to that and just saying, thank you all for coming, but it's time for us to now, move into a quieter time. Also carving out some sort of focused activities. I think a lot of times we may, invite people over and say, we're going to have appetizers or a meal, and everybody's going to kind of just chat and all of that, which is lovely. But for the person living with dementia, when there are a lot of different conversations happening and there's not really one focused activity, it can get very overwhelming. I'm somebody that this is something that's impacted my family, and I do remember many Thanksgivings ago that I remember us sitting around the table, and I looked at my grandfather, who was living with dementia. He was at the head of the table, and he just kind of had this blank look on his face.
Mhm.
And it was like he had checked out. He just wasn't involved in any of the conversations. He wasn't taking part in really being there. He just physically was there, but really you could see that mentally he wasn't involved. And
Mhm.
knowing what I know now, it was because there were several conversations happening around the table, and he couldn't pick just one to go with. So even if it is about just getting together and having nice conversation with family and friends, maybe say we all need to stop and take turns. Maybe even
Mhm.
have some topics. And this is probably good for any families and friends getting together, that like, here are the topics we're going to talk about. And, this is something that we might want to avoid because it might set the person off. And there's plenty of those things in the news these days. So just kind of avoiding that. Some
Mhm.
other suggestions for like sort of a focused activity would be a sing-along. There's a lot of holiday tunes that people could create a sing-along together. That may not be something that your family and friends are necessarily into, but it,
Mhm.
it could actually end up being like a fun tradition that you create. Um, or working on a craft project together. It could be, decorating cookies together, that kind of thing
Mhm.
that is related to whatever holiday you're celebrating. So it's important to be thinking of what can we do to sort of put the focus somewhere. And also making sure that you're very in tune with the person living with dementia. If you can see that they're starting to get a little restless, um, are they overwhelmed? Is there too much happening? Have a quiet room where they can go sit one-on-one with somebody. You do want to make sure for safety's sake, because sometimes that overwhelm can lead to the person saying, I need to get out of here. And then they may
Mhm.
start to wander. So safety, definitely put that in place. Make sure there's always somebody watching and keeping tabs on that person, just making sure that they're happy, feeling supported, that this is still feeling right. And also communicating to the guests that if at any point this goes awry and it just doesn't feel like it's working anymore, sorry, but you got to go.
Mhm.
So it's just having a lot of flexibility ahead of time to know that this, we have to have a plan A, B, C, maybe even a plan D, just
Mhm.
because we don't know what might happen and how that person may interpret all of the celebrating around them. It can be really fun, but it also can be a lot. It also might mean that you don't host. If you're
Mhm.
typically the host, but you're also the caregiver to this person, maybe it doesn't make sense to host and then have to like set a deadline and kick people out. Maybe you pop in to somebody else's celebration so that you can just leave whenever you feel like it's time. We feel like we're going to move on. There's a lot of different ways that you can create traditions and celebrating that don't have to be overwhelming. It might even be, let's go for a ride in the car, put on some holiday music, and drive around and look at all the pretty lights. That might be a nice quiet way. You can have some hot cocoa. You can put on a fun little holiday sweater. It's just creating new traditions. It might feel sad at first to have to change, but then you just say, okay, well, this is our new normal. And that probably will change as things go on as well. Now, there's also people who have loved ones living in a facility. So it's also important to recognize that celebrating can happen there too.
Mhm.
I think sometimes we want to take the person out of the facility to go to, a loved one's party or whatever it may be. And if that makes sense for that person, that's fine. That's great. It doesn't always, though. Sometimes it's more overwhelming and kind of a disruption of their normal routine. And routine is super important to people who have dementia. It helps them
Mhm.
feel a little more in control of their day and what is happening. So keeping those things in mind with all of our planning. But sometimes taking the person out of the facility to go to a party doesn't always work. A lot of times these facilities, though, have like a conference room or a private dining room that you can just reserve and say, we're going to have, whoever for family and friends come in for an hour or two, and we're going to have a nice cake and celebrate each other. And they're in their environment where if they did need to go use the bathroom, there are aides there available to help. It just really kind of depends on where in the course of the disease they're at. But celebrating can happen in any way. I think a lot of people also have some ideas of, what we might need to include in a holiday. And some of that might be like, what with the gift giving, what makes sense. So, I mean, picking something that if you feel like a gift still makes sense, picking something that's useful to them, that is comforting, lots of different ideas out there. There's actually a website called the Alzheimer's Store, and they have a lot of great ideas of very useful items that could be helpful to people. You don't have to order directly from there. Sometimes it just gives you ideas of like, oh, I think I could find that somewhere else. But you could also order through there as well. Yeah, it's very helpful for that. And I would say also for like any family or friends that want to give gifts, give them very specific suggestions about what does this person need? What do they want? And things to maybe avoid. They may be things that make a lot of noise or are kind of surprising, but maybe that's not the right thing to give. And then just, what are their favorite things? That kind of thing. It might even just be a bouquet of flowers or something that just brightens up their day for that moment. So keeping that in mind, I think also just there's also a component where there might be people that live a distance away that maybe it doesn't make sense for them to travel hours to come and possibly have to turn around and leave because maybe it's not a good visit. There are, you could also do a video visit type of thing. It's not always the most exciting thing, but you still are connecting in a way. Again, it's going to depend on where in the course of the disease this person is at, and maybe having just one person at a time on the camera. So that's not overwhelming with a whole slew of people and trying to figure out who's talking and all of that. And just creating sort of a way to connect in that way. Again, you can bring things like a sing-along to that, or you could even figure out a way to share your screen and, look through photos together, or, just chat about something that you see on a screen that you wanted to share. So there are a lot of ways that people can do that. And then I want to mention also for anybody that is a friend or family member to a caregiver, check in on them. It's really important that the caregiver doesn't just totally fall apart during the holidays. And it is a hard time because there's a lot to manage on top of regular life and on top of now all the holiday stuff. Ask them, can I help you wrap gifts? Can I come stay and watch a movie and have hot cocoa with the person you're caring for so that you can go out and go shopping? Suggest different things, because the very well-meaning, hey, let me know if you need anything, the person's probably not going to take you up on it. But if you give them a solid idea of, hey, I was thinking I'd really like to come over on Friday night. We could put on a fun movie and, get cozy in our jammies and watch, a fun movie and have hot cocoa while you go and enjoy something, whether it's go out to a movie themselves or go out to dinner with friends or just go get their shopping done for the holidays. It's just having a concrete way that you could help is a really, that's the best gift you probably could give all the holiday season. And keep giving that gift even after the holidays, because it is such a hard job. And I think it's one of those sort of thankless jobs that people step up to the plate. Whether they thought that was what their plan was going to be or not, they'll take that on, and it's tricky. It's a really tricky job to manage. So it takes a village, and it's always helpful to have people to jump in and be part of that village. And then the other piece too, I would say, is just being flexible and understanding as a friend and family, as the care partner. The person with the disease may not always understand, like, oh, this is such and such a day that we need to celebrate today. So maybe you do it. I mean, they may see the advertisements around and think, oh, that's today. If they think it's today, just go with it. Okay, let's celebrate by doing something kind of to mark the holiday today. And that can be a low key thing, but it's kind of the holiday season. So we can extend it or keep it short, and that's okay. And I do want to mention, we do have a lot of education programs. If you go to alz.org, we have some live virtual programs. We also have some pre-recorded programs. So one in particular that I think would be really helpful to caregivers as well as anybody that's going to be visiting is one that is called Communicating Effectively. And it just goes through the different stages of the disease and how we might approach things differently. It'll tell you at this point in the disease, the person may struggle more with blank. And so how we can change how we communicate to be more supportive of that person. And it just helps give kind of like an idea too of, oh, okay, I didn't know that at this stage they may have more trouble with, following directions. So maybe I should give less verbal cues and more showing them what I mean by almost like charades, and saying it at the same time. But oftentimes the person is relying not just on the words that we're saying, but on how we're saying it. So just giving people a little background before they come for a visit as to, here's what to expect. Here are some of the changes that have happened since the last time you visited. Maybe it's been a year, so there may have been some changes that have happened. So here's what you can expect, as well as here are some ways that you can respond to help that person. So I think that's really important. So alz.org, you can find a bunch of our education programs to either watch pre-recorded or join live. We also have education programs out in the community. So if somebody wanted to go to one in person, they could do that. I also want to mention our 24/7 helpline, which is 800-272-3900. Call it even if you don't know why you're calling. We figure that out with you. It can be a question and answer type of thing. It could be, hey, I'm dealing with this behavior and I have no idea what to do. We will help you work through some ideas. And they're all master's level clinicians. They'll answer at 3 a.m. if you had a question. And like I said, you don't have to know why you're calling. You can just call and be like, I'm having a really hard day and I don't know how to handle this. And they'll help work through that and figure out what kind of supports are going to help you to be able to handle this. Support groups are another really important tool that you can utilize. And we have a list of those that people can access through the helpline. We can get you connected with what you need. Some of those are in person. Some of them are virtual. So whatever fits your lifestyle will be a great benefit. And I also want to mention too that we do have a podcast. It's fairly new. I think we started it in the spring, but there's already a lot of great episodes, and it's called Speaking of Alzheimer's. So if you're in the car driving around and you want to just learn more, they're short episodes, maybe a half hour at most. And they're just a great way to kind of get some insight into various things. Sometimes it's people that are caregivers. Sometimes it's people living with the disease talking about what that feels like. Sometimes it's researchers, other professionals. So there's a lot of content that is really valuable for caregivers and for learning. So I think probably if you take anything away from this, the best tips are just set realistic expectations. Be willing to delegate tasks to other people. So if you are going to be the host, have it be a potluck. Have everybody bring something that they want to show off as a dish and, make it easier on yourself. Even little things like, okay, I don't want to have a sink full of dishes that I have to deal with. So go paper. That's okay for making things a little easier. Just simplify things. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be so daunting and overwhelming. I think just reevaluating what makes this holiday important. So if it is just about, quiet reflection and being together, that's totally fine to do that. And it's okay to kind of put up some barriers and just say, here's what we're doing this year to keep it simple. If you want to pop in and schedule a time to come over, let me know. And it might just be little individual visits, and that might be less overwhelming. So that's a good start. Everybody's celebrations look different. So if you have an idea and you're not really sure where to go with that, call our helpline. Again, that's 800-272-3900. We can help you work through some ideas and get you the support that you need. Thank you, Karen, for having me on today. This has been great.
Well, thank you. You've definitely unwrapped a lot of good ideas for us today. And I will make sure I put the information for the Alzheimer's store as well as the hotline number too, because I think that's definitely a good tool. And especially when you said, you could call them at 3 a.m. because that might be when they need someone just to listen. So I think you gave a lot of valuable information. Look forward to getting this out to people, and look forward to, having more conversations with you in the future.
Thank you so much, and happy realistic holidays.
Yes, and same to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.